Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to season 3, episode 8 of the Peace Podcast. Just give me the ability to accept the no, whatever that looks like. And so when we go through life, oftentimes we are struggling to make some things happen, and we have it in our heart that it's supposed to be for us, and we push and we enact our tenacity, and we just tell ourselves, this thing is supposed to be for me, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to have this thing. And in those same spaces, we struggle with when God tells us no. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about what happens when you really want something and God just isn't giving it to you. And what are we supposed to do about it? So as I've told you before, and as you know, I am 42 and I've never been married. And I know all of the people are going to come out of the woodworks and say things like, well, she must be crazy. Something must be wrong with her. Maybe the things that people say about her in the past are accurate. And I'm here to tell you that perhaps people have that perspective and that opinion. But the reality of the situation is that I wanted something so badly, and that was to be a wife and to have a husband and to be in a marriage, that I was willing to put the wrong people in those spaces to make it happen. And so in that same vein, I was prioritizing that title because I knew that societal norms said that if you were of this age and you didn't have that title, then clearly something must be wrong with you. So my intention was off because it wasn't just about wanting this thing so that I could give something to it. It was about wanting this thing so that I could get rid of the stigma that was attached to being a single person with kids at this age. And so when I was in those spaces, God knew that I really did want and desire to be a wife. God knew that I really wanted a relationship to work, that I no longer wanted to be in failed relationships, that I no longer wanted to endure the same toxic relationship that I had experienced over and over again. But the problem was that I didn't listen to his no. So in this past relationship that I was in, mind you, it was 3 of some toxic relationships. So it was number 3. And I hadn't quite understood that the pattern was of me picking these type of people. Wasn't quite there yet in my self-assessment and just self-awareness. And my consciousness was really low around why God would not let this thing happen. And so the relationship had been going on for like a year, and I started to feel like maybe when God told me this wasn't for me at the beginning, that perhaps I should have listened to that no, because it was a nudge. It wasn't a full stop, but there were signs, and I perhaps could have been better at listening to those signs and just didn't. And so what I noticed was that when I wasn't ready to hear the no, I pushed the no away and just became more tenacious. And I said, I will do more, be more, and try to change more about this person, and then it will work. And it didn't work because in that space, what God was telling me was, you are going to have the thing you want one day. Like, you are going to be in a marriage, you are going to be a wife, but not yet, because what I'm preparing for you is in preparation. And there's going to be a full hard no to the person that you are trying to make it happen with. And the reason is because that person is not my best for you. And so, side note, something that we really have to get keen on doing is when we're in a conflicted state and we're asking ourselves questions about, is this thing for me? Do I believe that God sent this thing for me? We have to ask ourselves, take off the mask and disguises that this thing, opportunity, or person tries to wear, and ask ourselves, if God intricately wove together my story, my physical body, my spirit, and all the things about me, if he were to take this thing that's in front of me right now, would he give it to me as his best? And if the answer to that is no, then, and it's not on some, I'm expecting somebody to be perfect, because God doesn't even expect perfection. So it's not on that. It's not saying the person's not allowed to have flaws, but it's saying, like, if he were to choose somebody that I have the patience to accept, the grace to be able to give, somebody who's going to have the gentleness and the understanding and the character traits that I need, would he choose the person that's in front of me? And I can tell you that in that circumstance, the answer was absolutely not, because the person who was in front of me had heightened expectations of me because they had hurt from their own parents, had an outlandish idea of what a person was supposed to give in a relationship, more than any one human would be able to give, had a desire for a void to be filled by other people that should have been filled by his own internal compass with other people, and really didn't understand what gentleness looked like. Because if life wasn't going well for him, I was going to feel the aftermath of that. So if I were to have asked myself, which I did, if that was God's best for me, when he said no, I still decided that I was going to change, shift, or move it so that it would, in fact, be or become what I wanted it to become, which was a marriage and something that would turn into me being a wife. And again, he said, what's for you will happen, but this isn't what's for you. And so after that relationship had been going on for over a year, there was this 6-month period where I was like struggling with myself. So I kept saying, like, do I stay or do I go? Which is, I know, a struggle that a lot of us have. Do I keep pushing for this thing or do I let it go? And it was a really hard moment in time for me. But once we reached the month of May, I started to really hear the voice of God through other people. But I started to really hear him say, like, if this is what you want and this is what you're getting, then listen to my no. And be obedient and trust that I have something good for you. And so from that situation, I learned that the relationship was not for me. I also became okay with being by myself, and I shed that expectation that I had put on myself, that in order to be of value, I had to have the title wife attached to my name. And after shedding that and after getting rid of the relationship, I really was able to resonate with having my relationship with my kids and my relationship with God and being completely okay with that. But it took me a really long time to get there, because even though I heard his no, I still went kicking and screaming to try to get the thing that I wanted. And don't we do that often? You know, when you think about your kids, and if you have children or even kids that you know in general, they always want the dessert before dinner, but you know that it's going to ruin their appetite for dinner. So you might be like, you can have the ice cream, but not yet. You can have the Snickers bar, but not yet. You have to eat what's healthy for you first before you get this dessert. And sometimes I think that God is giving us that same thing. He's saying that, like, I want to satiate your appetite, but all you want is this end game, this dessert. And I can't let you have that yet, because I need for this thing to happen first. I need for you to grow and be shaped and molded into a person who can shepherd that thing that I have waiting for you. So it's not truly a no, it's just a not yet, not now. Like, I have what you want. I have that job that you want. I have those circumstances that you want. I have that house that you want. I have that relationship that you want. I have the circle of friends that you want. But I can't give it to you yet. And oftentimes when he's telling us not yet, what he's really saying is, I need to grow you. I need to refine you. I need to prune you so that you have the capacity at which to handle this thing when I give it to you. Because if we trust him, we also have to trust in his timing. And his timing includes his will, but it also includes our preparedness for what his will has in store for us. And if we aren't prepared for it, then oftentimes we're going to fumble whatever it is. If you think about your dream car, like the car you always wanted, the car you were like, I'm going to drive that car one day. Well, if you would have gotten that car at 16, it probably would not have been taken care of the same way as you would take care of it now. Probably wouldn't have maintained it the same way. You might not wash it the same way and taken care of it the same way. You perhaps wouldn't even drive it the same way. If that same car was given to you when you were 12, you wouldn't even know what to do with it. You wouldn't even know how to drive it, even if you wanted to, because perhaps you hadn't even been taught how to drive a car yet. You weren't even of age for it to be legal for you to be able to drive the car. But you still wanted it, right? And God knows those desires of your heart. He knows that you want that thing. And if it's in alignment with his will, he's waiting for the timing to be right for you to be able to steward that thing. Because it's going to be even worse if you get that thing and you find out that you're not even ready or prepared for whatever it is, and that you're the reason why the thing crashes and burns. You're the reason why it becomes damaged. You're the reason why it's wreckage instead of something that becomes fruitful. And it doesn't mean that he would just give up on you or the thing just can't come to you. But if you had the opportunity to have whatever it is, whatever your deepest desire is, and you found out that he gave you the opportunity early because you keep begging for it, and you found out that you just aren't equipped to handle it just yet. Well, that's the reason why he enacts his not yet. That's why he says, I have this beautiful thing for you, but not yet. Because perhaps the thing that you're holding on to is also keeping you from the thing that you really want. So not yet, and not with this person. Not yet, and not with this opportunity. Not yet, and not in these circumstances. So it's saving you from the arduous process of holding on to things that aren't for you. Because if you trust him and he says no to this thing, and yes, you have to wait for the thing, but you have to let go of what you've put as a place saver in its place, then maybe you would let go of it a little sooner if you knew that you had to let go of it and that was part of the process in order to get to the thing that you actually wanted. Because it's oftentimes like that picture that we see circulating the internet all the time, where there's the little girl with the teddy bear and her teddy bear is small and Jesus is trying to take it from her, but he has that big teddy bear behind his back and she just doesn't want to let it go. It's like, well, if you really want this thing, I have something greater and better waiting for you. But you have to loosen your grasp on this thing that you're holding on to so tightly. Because oftentimes what we do is we make those things idols, and then we don't realize why God is requiring us to let go of it. If that person is your idol and it stands in the place of the time that you would spend with God, he's going to say not yet or no to that thing. Because his relationship with you is the priority. It's the most important thing in his will, is for you to walk beside him. Sometimes that means that you're going to go through hardships and pains to refine you and prune you, but also those hardships and pains are going to teach you the things that he needs you to know in order to walk in accordance with his will. And the other thing is that sometimes no is impactful. Your no to other people and God's no to you. I know sometimes when my kids ask me to do things, like I think about the teenager often in this circumstance, like maybe she wants to go to the party because it's what all the cool kids are doing and all the cool kids are going to be there. But I know that the parents who are hosting that party either aren't going to be home, or even if they are, they don't have the same core values as I do. Well, I'm certainly not going to let her go. And she may think that it's because I'm trying to keep her from something. But the actuality is that I'm trying to keep her from something happening to her. I'm trying to keep her for what her future has for her. And if I allow her to be around those people and their influence, then perhaps she's not going to make it to the spot where her future is waiting for her to be. So I have to tell her no. And isn't that the same thing that God does to us? Doesn't he say no because he knows it won't end well? And are you one of those people who can look back at your life and really think about things that you know he has given you the nudge and the no to, and you've done them anyway? And you can go with with no questions or qualms, you can say, well, that didn't end well. I should have listened, right? He is telling you no because he knows it won't end well. If he knows that it's not for you, he's saying, I'm trying to save you some time, some frustration, some heartache, years of your life by just telling you no now, because this is not going to end the way that you think it will. And if we trust in his omniscient view, we'll believe that to be true because we know that he truly is trying to get us to follow the will that he has for us and follow in the plan and the steps that will take us there. And that leads me to this other point of if he says no, oftentimes it's because it's not in his will, because he has something more for you. Back to that image of the teddy bear. Like, I want you to have something better for you, and I have it waiting, so I have to tell you no to this thing. And your obedience in this no is going to determine the timing that it takes you to get the thing, because I cannot give you that thing with this person. I cannot give you that thing in these circumstances. And sometimes he'll just say no because he knows more than we do. And he knows what the plan looks like if that yes is enacted. And I know sometimes that's really hard because there are people who are pleading with God to just have one child. There are people who are pleading with God to not take their child away from them who is sick or ill or injured. There are people pleading with God to get their prodigal son to come back home. There are people pleading with God to allow them to just be a wife one day, to allow them to get out of the circumstance they're in, to allow them to see financial freedom. And it's hard when you hear him telling you no. Like, I cannot give you that right now because my will for you is for you to go through this thing so that you can be refined into the person I need you to be to get to the next part. And sometimes even that level of refinement is not even just for us. It's for our children and for our children's children, because we only have a vision for our own life and we don't even know what tomorrow brings. But the God we serve has a vision for everybody's lives and how they intricately are woven together and how those plans are good. And so how can we deal with the answers of not yet and no in a way that actually is productive? Well, the first one is we have to deal with our need to control, because the reality is that we are so used to having to hold the reins to everything, to having to control everything, because we want to know the outcome. We hate surprises. We don't want there to be a surprise. We want it to be so that we know exactly what's happening, because at least when we know what's happening, we know how we're able to respond and react to that thing. So we want to control it. And I also know that there's beauty in surprises. We don't like surprises because we've been surprised with the parent who didn't love us like they said they did, the person who was a narcissist when they weren't actually presenting themselves as one, the person who was abusive even though you never thought they would be. We've had to deal with all of these surprises that we didn't think would happen. And so we don't like surprises because we can't control those things. We'd rather just know and have control over it. But I also know that there are some people who will surprise you with a trip to the beach because they know that you love the ocean. There are some people who will surprise you with your favorite Marvel character as a charm on your bracelet just because it'll bring a smile to your face. There are people who bring you great surprises, and God is one of those. He has the surprise of your lifetime waiting around the corner, but you won't let go of your control so you can receive it. Because the thing is that trusting Him allows you to be free from needing to know. We don't need to know what's right around the corner. We don't need to know the entire story. And it's hard, trust me. Control freak reforming here. I completely understand how difficult it is to trust Him. But if we trust that He is good and we trust that His plans for us are good, then we can let go of the reins and the control, and we can say, if you said no, then it must not be in your will. If you said no, then perhaps you mean not yet, but maybe you'll surprise me with that later. If you said no, I'm going to be obedient because my faith says that your plan is better. And I don't need to know what's right around the corner to know that you're right around the corner. I don't need to know what you have waiting for me. All I need to know is that you're waiting for me. And He absolutely will enact a plan that is within the will that He has for you. And He will order your steps to get there. But you have to trust that no and not yet are 100% in alignment with the beauty of His will, with the surprise of your lifetime that's waiting right around the corner. So if you're in a space today where you've heard His no and you're not willing to be obedient to it, I promise you that eventually you're going to look back and say, I should have listened because this didn't end well. And if you're in a space today where He's saying not yet, just remain obedient. Continue to seek Him, and He will show you the plans that He has for you, and they're good plans because He's a good Father, even if they don't look good to you, because His omniscient perspective can see how all of those things are going to work together. And if you need some help in working through this process, certainly look for me on all my social media platforms. Follow me there. Reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you. And also like and subscribe to this page. If this message helped you, remember that knowledge gained is selfish, but knowledge gained and shared with the world just might be the catalyst to break people free from the bondage that they're experiencing. And this life lesson is the biggest one to learn. That sometimes a no or a not yet is exactly what you need in order for God to give you the greatest surprise of your lifetime. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.